The struggle at the market. The marketplace was loud and crowded, voices mixing together like a storm. Sellers shouted about fresh fruits, hot bread, and cheap clothing. Children ran between the stalls, their bare feet slapping against the dusty ground. The air smelled of spices and smoke. In the middle of the noise stood a single mother, her thin hands clutching a small bag of food, her child pressed close to her side. The boy's eyes were wide, hungry, and tired. His clothes were worn out, patched many times. The mother tried to hide her shame, but her face showed the weight of many silent battles. She had counted the coins in her pocket many times before walking into the market. She thought she had enough for a little bread, some rice, and a few vegetables. It was not much, but it would keep her child alive for a few more days. Her heart had beat faster with each step toward the counter. Now she stood in front of the cashier, a human man who had been living in this alien town for years. He had simple clothes, dark hair, and steady eyes that watched everyone with quiet care. He scanned the food. The numbers lit up on the small screen. The mother's face turned pale. The price was more than she had. She froze. Her hands shook as she pulled out the small coins. She tried to smile weakly, her voice barely above. A whisper, I do not have enough. She pushed the bag of food back across the counter, her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. The boy clutched her hand, his small fingers gripping tightly. Mama, please don't give it back. His voice cracked. With hunger, people behind them in line began to mutter. Some sighed in annoyance, others whispered cruel jokes. The mother bowed her head in shame, her cheeks burning red. She was ready to leave the food behind, ready to walk out with empty hands, ready to carry her son home hungry again. But then, something unexpected happened. The cashier's hand stopped. His voice was calm but firm. Keep it, he said, his eyes steady on hers. You will take this food home. The mother blinked, confused. But I cannot pay. Her voice trembled. I know, the human said, pulling his own small pouch from beneath the counter. He placed a few credits into the register, covering the cost without hesitation. The machine beeped, approving the transaction. The crowd behind them fell silent for a moment. Some gasped, some scoffed, others shook their heads. A waste, one alien muttered. Helping her will only make more beggars. Another whispered, but the human ignored them. He packed the food, gently, and handed the bag back to the mother, his eyes kind but firm. Take it, feed your child. The mother's lips trembled. She could not find words. Her heart pounded. Her whole body felt weak. She had begged before. She had been mocked before. But never had someone stood between her and hunger like this. Never had someone paid her debt so simply, so silently. Her child's face lit up with joy. His little hands reached for the bag, hugging it close to his chest as if it were treasure. Thank you, sir, the boy whispered, his voice full of pure relief. The mother wanted to speak, wanted to explain her pain, her shame, her gratitude, but all that came out was a soft whisper. Why? The human cashier only shrugged. Because it's the right thing to do. The line of customers grew restless again, muttering about wasted time, but the mother no longer cared. She held her child's hand tighter, held the food like it was a gift from the stars. Her eyes burned with tears she could not stop. As she walked away from the counter, whispers followed her, some mocking, some curious, a few even respectful. The market lights flickered overhead, the air heavy with judgment and surprise. She felt every eye on her back, but she also felt something else, a strange warmth she had not known for years. Hope. The boy tugged at her sleeve as they stepped into the dusty street. Mama, he helped us, he really did. His smile was wide, brighter than she had seen in months. The mother looked back one last time, her eyes searching for the human cashier. He had already moved to the next customer, his face calm, as if nothing unusual had happened, as if saving them was the most natural thing in the world. The mother held the food close to her chest, a storm of emotions swirling inside her, fear, shame, relief, and something dangerous. something she thought she had lost forever: trust. That night in their small cold shelter, as the boy ate bread with a smile, the mother sat in silence, staring at the food, at her son's happy face, and at the memory of the human's calm eyes. She wondered what kind of man would help. A stranger like her, she wondered if kindness still existed in a world that had given her nothing but pain. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe, just a little, that tomorrow might not be as cruel as yesterday. A secret kindness. The night was colder than usual. The single mother walked quickly through the narrow streets, holding her child close. The bag of food pressed tightly against her chest. The lamps flickered above, casting long shadows. Her heart was still heavy with shame. But there was also something new inside her, a strange light she could not name. Her son, full after eating bread for the first time in days, hummed softly, his voice warm and innocent. "Mama, he was kind. The human man was kind," he said again and again, as if he wanted the memory to last forever. The mother stayed quiet. She wanted to believe her child. She wanted to hold on to the hope that maybe kindness could exist in such a harsh world. But deep inside, she feared it was only a dream. Tomorrow people might laugh at her. Tomorrow the kindness might cost her more than she could afford. In the market, the human cashier stayed behind after closing. He sat alone, counting coins. The pouch on his belt was lighter now. He knew the others would notice. He knew whispers would follow. But his face stayed calm. He had seen too many hungry eyes to ignore them. He had lived long enough to know that sometimes a small act could keep a soul alive. That night, a group of aliens gathered at a tea stall nearby, their voices low but sharp. "The human thinks he is better than us," one spat. "Paying for strangers, making us look heartless." Another hissed, "It will only bring trouble." They did not like outsiders who broke silent rules, rules that kept everyone in their place. But there were also others who had seen what happened, quiet workers and tired mothers. They whispered softly in their homes. The human helped her, some said. Maybe not all hearts are cold. Their words carried like smoke through the streets, unnoticed yet powerful. The mother sat awake that night, her child asleep beside her, his stomach full, his breath soft and steady. She touched his hair gently, her fingers trembling. The bag of food sat half empty on the small table. She stared at it as if it were treasure, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Why did the human help her, she wondered. What did he want in return? In this world, no one gave without taking. No one offered kindness without a hidden price. Yet his eyes had been steady, his words simple. The next morning, she wrapped her shawl tightly and stepped outside. The streets were already alive, but she felt the stares. Some eyes full of pity, some full of anger. Whispers followed her again. That's her, the one the human paid for. Her heart sank. She wished she could hide, but her son's small hand in hers gave her strength. "Mama, are we going to the market again?" he asked, his voice full of innocent hope. She shook her head quickly. "Not today." Her voice low, but her heart argued with itself. She wanted to avoid shame, but she also wanted to see the human again, to thank him properly. In the market, the human cashier worked quietly, his hands steady as always. He greeted every customer with the same calm tone, yet he felt the change in the air. He heard the whispers, he noticed the sideways looks. He did not care. But deep inside, he knew something was building. Later that day, when the line grew short, an older alien woman leaned on the counter, her eyes narrow. "You should not have done it," she said coldly. "It makes the rest of us look cruel." The human looked at her calmly, his voice quiet. "If feeding a child makes you look cruel, perhaps you already are," he said, then moved to the next customer. The woman left, anger in her steps, but her words spread further. Soon the market was divided. Some admired his courage, some cursed his foolishness. That evening, the mother sat with her son again, watching him eat the last of the bread, his small face glowing with joy. Her heart ached. She could not let this go without thanks. She searched through her small belongings, Old cloth, broken tools, faded memories. Finally, she found a piece of hand-woven fabric she had saved. It was the last gift from her mother before she died. Her hands shook as she folded it. She whispered to herself, "I will give this to him. I must." The next morning she walked to the market again, her son skipping beside her, carrying the folded cloth. Her heart raced, fear and gratitude mixing like fire in her chest. The market was busy, and when she reached the counter, she froze. The human looked up at her, calm as always. "You came back," he said. Her hands trembled as she placed the folded cloth on the counter. This is for you," she whispered, her voice weak but full of emotion. The human frowned slightly. "You do not owe me anything," he said. "I know," she said, tears in her eyes. "But I must give something. It is all I have." The boy looked at the human with wide, hopeful eyes, waiting. The cashier looked at the cloth, then at the woman and child. His expression softened. He nodded slowly. "Then I will accept it," he said, placing the cloth gently behind the counter. "Not because you owed me, but because it means—" The mother's heart pounded. Relief washed over her. For the first time in many years, her gift had not been rejected. Her thanks had not been mocked. As she walked away, she held her child's hand tighter, and the boy whispered, "See, Mama, he is different, he is truly kind." The mother did not answer, her eyes filled with tears, but deep inside she felt the same truth, whispers in the dark. The market never slept. Even when the lamps dimmed and the stalls closed, voices still traveled through the narrow alleys, whispers carried faster than the wind, and by morning, every corner of the settlement knew about the single mother and the human cashier. "They say he paid for her food," one alien told his neighbor as they swept dust from the street. "With his own coins," the neighbor replied, eyes wide. "Why would a human do that?" In a tavern filled with smoke, a group of workers sat around a broken table, mugs in hand. "He thinks he is better than us," one growled, slamming his drink. "Helping her in front of everyone, making us look cold." Another added, bitterness dripping from every word. "He is not one of us. He should keep his head down." But not every whisper was cruel. In the back rooms of small houses, tired mothers spoke in softer tones. "I wish someone would help me like that," one said. "Maybe humans are not like they tell us in the stories," another murmured. "Maybe there is still kindness left." The mother could feel the change. In the air, when she walked through the streets, eyes followed her. Some burned with envy, others with quiet judgment. She pulled her shawl tighter, trying to shield her child from the stares. Her son, however, walked proudly, his small steps full of new confidence. "Mama, he is good," the boy said often. "He is not like the others. He is different." His words were full of hope, but the mother's heart trembled. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break more cruelly than hunger. At the market, the human cashier worked as always, his hands steady, his face calm, but he heard the whispers too, voices like knives behind his back, some soft, some sharp. He did not answer. He only worked, yet he felt the walls of silence growing around him. One afternoon, a group of young aliens leaned near his stall, pretending to buy, their voices low but mocking. "Human, do you pay for everyone now?" One sneered. "Or only for poor widows?" Another laughed. "Maybe he wants her for himself." The third hissed. The words were poison meant to wound. The human looked at them without fear, his voice steady. "A hungry child should not suffer. If you do not understand that, then perhaps you are poorer than she is." His words cut sharper than theirs. The boys fell silent, and though they spat on the ground before leaving, his calm refusal to bend only added to the whispers. That night, the mother sat with her son in their small shelter, the food now gone, her hands empty again, but her mind heavy with questions. "Why do they hate him for kindness?" she whispered to herself. "Why do they twist his act into shame?" She looked at her child, sleeping soundly, his belly no longer aching, and her heart ached with gratitude. Her son dreamed of bread and warmth, smiling even in sleep. He whispered in his dreams, "He helped us, Mama. He helped us." The words were soft but pierced the mother's heart. Like light in darkness, the next day the market felt heavier than before. People spoke louder, their eyes sharper. The mother tried to avoid the stalls, but she could not escape the talk. "She is using him," one alien said. "He is foolish," another added. Their voices burned into her ears. She wanted to hide, but when she saw the human cashier behind the counter, working as if nothing had changed, her fear softened. His calm presence was like a wall against the storm. Later, when the crowd thinned, she approached him again, her son tugging at her sleeve. "Mama, say thank you," the boy whispered. She hesitated, her voice shaking. "They are saying things, cruel things about you, about me." The cashier's eyes met hers, steady as stone. "Let them talk," he said simply. "Words cannot fill a child's stomach. Only food can." His voice was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet fire. The mother's throat tightened, tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to speak more, to warn him, to beg him to stop before the settlement turned against him. But her words broke into silence. That night the whispers grew darker, in corners and alleys. Some spoke of teaching the human a lesson, others of chasing him from the market. But in other homes, quiet prayers were spoken for him, small seeds of respect planted in secret hearts. The mother sat awake, her son sleeping beside her. Her heart pounding, she knew the kindness that saved her had also placed him in danger. She knew the whispers were growing into something heavier. She looked at her child's peaceful face and whispered into the dark, "If they hurt him, it will be because of me." Her voice cracked with guilt, yet her heart held a truth she could not deny. She would never forget the way he stood for her, the way he gave without asking. The whispers of the settlement had changed everything, and though the night was quiet, the mother knew a storm was coming. The mother's dilemma. The morning sun rose weakly over the settlement, its pale light crawling across broken walls and dusty streets. The air was sharp with smoke and the smell of old bread. People moved quickly, heads down, whispers still clinging to their lips. The single mother walked slowly, her son holding her hand, her shawl wrapped tightly around her thin shoulders. The market loomed ahead, alive with noise. She felt her stomach twist with fear. She had food yesterday, but today her pockets were empty again. Her son tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, can we go see him again?" His voice was bright, full of innocent hope. "The human man, he will smile at us." The mother's heart trembled. She wanted to see the cashier again. She wanted to thank him properly, but shame burned in her chest. People were still talking, some with mockery, some with poison. She feared her presence might bring him more trouble. That day, she avoided the market. She stayed inside her small shelter, the walls cracked, the roof leaking. Her son played quietly with stones, pretending they were toys, his laughter soft, but her mind was restless. She sat near the corner, staring at the old woven cloth she had given away. The image of the human's calm eyes still haunted her. His words repeated again and again in her mind. "It's the right thing to do." How could a stranger believe that, when even her own people turned away? By evening, her son grew hungry again. He asked for food with hopeful eyes. Her heart broke. "I will find something," she promised, though she had no plan. She stepped out into the cold air, walking aimlessly through the alleys. Every turn brought voices, every corner carried whispers. "There she is," some murmured. "The one he paid for." She pulled her shawl tighter, tears burning at the edges of her eyes. In the distance, she saw the market lights. She saw the familiar counter where the human worked, his figure steady as always, customers moving before him like waves. She froze, torn between her shame and her gratitude. Should she approach him? Should she risk the whispers? Should she thank him once more, or should she stay silent and keep her distance? Her heart raced, her feet moved slowly forward, but then she stopped again, her fear heavy as chains. What if the others attacked him because of her? What if they blamed him more? Her son pulled her hand gently. "Mama, please, I want to tell him thank you." The boy's voice was soft but full of determination. The mother's chest tightened. She stared at her child. his eyes glowing with hope, his smile fragile but brave. How could she deny him? How could she let fear take away this small chance of joy? She knelt down, cupping his face with trembling hands. "If we go, you must stay close to me," she whispered, her voice full of warning and love. "Do not speak too loudly, do not draw too much attention." The boy nodded eagerly. "I will stay close, Mama." Together, they walked toward the market, each step heavier than the last. The noise grew louder, the crowd busier. But when they reached the counter, the human cashier lifted his eyes, his calm gaze settling on them as if he had been waiting. "You came back," he said softly. The mother's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but words tangled in her throat. Finally, she whispered, I should not trouble you again. People are talking, they say things, cruel things." The human's face remained steady. "Let them talk," he replied. "Their words do not change what is right." Her son smiled brightly, stepping forward. "Thank you, sir," he said, his little voice carrying louder than he meant. "You helped us, I will not forget." The people in line turned their heads. Some sneered, some frowned. But the cashier did not waver. He leaned slightly closer and said quietly, "Your thanks is enough, nothing more is needed." The mother's chest ached, her heart torn between fear and relief. She wanted to stay longer, to talk, to ask why he risked himself. But she knew. The stairs were growing sharper, the air heavier. She pulled her son gently away, her voice low. "Come, we must go." As they walked back through the streets, her mind spun with questions. What did she owe him now? What if kindness turned to debt? What if tomorrow he was punished for her sake? That night she could not sleep. The boy rested peacefully beside her, but she sat awake, staring at the broken roof, her thoughts a storm. Part of her wanted to hide, to never see him again, to protect him from the whispers that surrounded her. But another part of her longed to see him, to thank him, to trust him. It was a cruel dilemma, one that tore her heart in two. If she stayed away, she would protect him, but she would also lose the only spark of kindness she had seen in years. If she returned, she might bring danger upon him, but she might also find something more than survival, something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The wind howled outside. The night stretched endlessly, and the mother sat in silence, torn between fear and faith. By dawn, she whispered into the quiet air, her hands shaking. "What is right? What should I do?" But no answer came, only the soft breath of her sleeping child. Days passed, yet the memory of the market never left the mother's heart. She tried to stay hidden, tried to keep her son close inside their small shelter, but hunger always pulled them back to the marketplace, and every time they went, their eyes searched for the human cashier. He was always there, behind the counter, steady and calm, his voice simple, his hands quick. He never looked away when she approached. He never treated her with pity. His gaze carried something else, something the mother could not name. At first, she thought she should only go when she had a few coins. She did not want to seem like a beggar, but her son had no fear. He waved at the human each time, his small face lit up like the sun. "Hello, sir," the boy would say proudly, and the human would answer with a warm nod. The bond began quietly, with short words and simple gestures, the boy asking questions about the strange human tools at the counter, the cashier answering with patience, showing him how to count numbers on the glowing screen. The mother stood silently, her heart tight, afraid of judgment. But each day she saw her son's smile grow brighter. One evening, as the market slowed, the mother lingered too long. Her coins barely bought half a loaf of bread. Shame pricked her chest. But before she could leave, the human slipped a small bag of rice into her hands, his voice low. "For the boy." Her throat tightened. She wanted to refuse, but her son's hungry eyes left her weak. She bowed her head in silence, clutching the rice like treasure. The whispers did not stop, they only grew louder. "He favors them," some said. "He breaks the order," others hissed. Jealousy burned in their voices. But the human did not change. His calm eyes never wavered. Soon, the boy began to visit the market even when his mother hesitated. sometimes running ahead, eager to see the cashier. He would return with stories. "Mama, he showed me how to count faster." Or, "Mama, he told me humans grow fruit too." His laughter was filled with light. The mother listened, torn between fear and gratitude. Her son was changing, hope blooming in his small heart. But she feared that hope would be crushed if the world turned against the human. One cold morning, the boy ran inside their shelter carrying something in his hands. It was a small wooden toy, rough but carefully carved, shaped like a bird. "He made it for me," the boy said proudly. "The human, he gave it to me." His eyes shone like stars. The mother stared at the toy, her chest heavy. "Why would he give you this?" she whispered. But the boy only hugged the bird close. "Because he cares, Mama. He really does." That night, as her son slept with the toy in his arms, the mother sat awake, her mind restless. The bond was no longer just a simple kindness. It was becoming something deeper, something dangerous. The next day, she decided to speak. When she reached the counter, her voice trembled. "You should not give him gifts. People are watching. They will turn against you." The cashier looked at her with steady eyes, his tone calm. "I know," he said simply, "but children deserve joy, even in dark places." Her heart ached. Her words stuck in her throat. She wanted to argue, but instead she whispered, "You risk too much." The human's gaze softened. Some risks are worth taking. The bond grew stronger with each passing day. The boy's laughter returned. The mother's eyes no longer carried only fear, and the human, though surrounded by whispers, seemed more alive when they came. But the settlement was not blind. Some watched with suspicion, others with anger. One night, the mother overheard a group outside their shelter, voices sharp and cold. "He protects them, feeds them. Soon he will believe he owns this place." Another voice hissed, "We must remind him where he belongs." Her blood ran cold. Fear gripped her heart. She pressed her son close as he slept, tears filling her eyes. The bond that had given them light was now casting shadows of danger. The next morning, she tried to stay away, but her son begged, "Please, Mama, just one visit, please." His voice, so full of hope she could not refuse. When they arrived, the human was waiting, his calm eyes meeting hers as if he knew her fear, as if he could see the storm in her heart. He leaned closer and spoke softly, "Do not be afraid." His words carried a strength she could not understand. The mother's heart pounded, torn between gratitude and dread. She knew the bond between them was no longer a secret kindness. It was becoming a lifeline, one that tied her family to the human in ways no whispers could break. Yet, in the shadows of the market, jealous eyes watched, plotting in silence. The backlash. The market no longer felt the same. The air was heavier, eyes sharper, whispers louder. Every time the mother walked with her son to the human stall, silence followed her like a shadow. Then came the mutters, cruel words falling like stones. "Look at her, clinging to him." One alien spat, "She makes him weak." Another hissed, "He is one of us, yet he chooses them." The mother felt every word pierce her skin, but she held her son's hand tightly, her shawl pulled low over her face. Her boy, too young to care about whispers, still smiled, still waved. "Hello, sir," he said brightly, and the human always answered with calm warmth. But the settlement was restless, and restlessness soon grew into something darker. One evening, after the market had closed, the human stayed behind as usual, cleaning the counter, when three shadows entered the stall. They were young men, their faces hard, their voices sharp. "You think you are better than us," one sneered, "paying for her, giving gifts, feeding their kind." Another growled, "You shame us, human. You make us look weak." The human stood steady, his eyes calm. "Feeding. A child is not weakness," he said firmly. "It is strength." The tallest of the three stepped closer, his fist clenched. "If you keep helping her, we will make you regret it." His voice was low and dangerous. The human did not flinch. "Do what you will," he said, "but I will not stop." The young men spat on the ground before leaving, their anger echoing in the night. The next morning, the mother heard the whispers before she even reached the market. They warned him. Someone said, "If he doesn't stop, he will suffer." Her heart froze, guilt crushing her chest. She pulled her son close, fear tightening around her. When she finally reached the stall, she leaned in, her voice shaking. "They threatened you." The human nodded slightly. "Yes," his tone calm, "but I am not afraid." Her eyes burned with tears. "You should be," she whispered. "This is because of me, because of my son." The human's gaze softened, steady and unyielding. "No," he said. "It is because kindness scares them. They fear what they do not understand." The mother wanted to argue, but her words broke into silence. Her son clung to the counter, smiling as if the world was still safe. That night, the backlash grew in the taverns. The whispers turned into angry voices. "He must be punished," one said. "If he will not stop, we will stop him." The fire of envy spread quickly, fueled by fear and pride. Meanwhile, in quiet homes, others argued in hushed voices. "But he feeds children, is that wrong?" some said. "He brings shame," others replied. "If we allow it, what next?" The settlement was divided. The human's small act had become a storm. The mother lay awake, her son sleeping soundly beside her. She stared at the broken roof, her chest heavy. She remembered the human's calm face, his quiet strength. She felt torn apart. Part of her wanted to beg him to stop, to walk away from them, to protect himself. But another part of her knew she could never ask that, because his kindness was the only thing keeping her and her son alive. The next day, the market felt like a battlefield. Stares sharper than knives, words dripping with poison. When the mother approached the counter, silence fell. Dozens of eyes burning into her back. She placed a few coins on the counter, her hands trembling. The human took them quietly, slipping an extra piece of bread into the bag. His voice low. "For the boy." The silence broke with a cruel laugh from the crowd. "Look at her taking more as if she deserves it," another voice spat. "And the human feeds her like she is his pet." The mother's face burned, tears filled her eyes. She grabbed the bag and turned quickly, pulling her son away. But before she left, she looked back. The human stood firm, his jaw set, his eyes unshaken. That night, when the boy fell asleep holding the bread close, the mother sat in the dark, her hands covering her face, the guilt crushing her. "They will hurt him because of me," she whispered, her voice breaking, "and I cannot stop it." Yet deep inside, she knew one truth: no matter how heavy the backlash became, no matter how cruel the whispers turned, the bond between her child, and the human had already grown too strong to break. The settlement could hate, it could threaten, it could try to destroy. But in the heart of one mother and one child, his kindness had already lit a fire that no darkness could put out. And the fire was spreading quietly, in places where the whispers of envy could not reach. The settlement was restless. The whispers had grown into sharp voices. Anger now walked openly in the streets. For days, the mother avoided the market. Her heart heavy with fear, she thought if she stayed away, the human might be safe, she thought. Distance could protect him, but hunger is stronger than fear. Her son grew pale again, his laughter fading, his small hands clutching his stomach. "Mama, I'm hungry," he whispered. The words broke her heart into pieces. She could not deny him. Not again. At last, she walked toward the market, her shawl pulled low, her son clinging to her side. Every step felt like a march into danger, and when she reached the stall, she saw him, the human cashier, standing steady as ever, his eyes lifted, calm and warm. "You returned," he said, his voice quiet. The mother's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but before she could, a harsh voice cut through the crowd. "There he is," it shouted, "the human who shames us all." 3 men stepped forward, the same ones who had threatened him before, their faces dark with anger, their fists tight. The market fell silent, the crowd forming a circle. Whispers turned into gasps. The mother pulled her son close, her heart pounding like thunder. The tallest man spat at the ground, his voice loud. "You break our order, You feed those who do not deserve it. You make us weak. He turned his glare to the mother. And you. You use him. You drag him down with your hunger. Tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to shout, to defend. But fear locked her throat. The human, however, stepped forward, his gaze steady, his voice firm. Enough. The crowd, stilled, his words carried like steel. There is no shame in feeding a hungry child. There is no weakness in kindness. You call me weak, but I see only fear in your eyes. Fear of change, fear of compassion. The men sneered. You dare. Yes. The human cut them off, his tone like fire. I dare because someone must. He turned to the mother and child, his hand steady. They are not less than you, not less than me. They are alive. They deserve to live, to eat, to hope. The crowd murmured, some scoffing, some shifting uncomfortably, others silent with thought. The mother clutched her son tightly, her tears falling freely, her chest burning with emotions she could no longer hold back. Her son, small but brave, stepped forward, his voice innocent but strong. He saved us. He gave us food when no one else would. Why is that wrong? The boy's words echoed in the silence, simple yet piercing. The tallest man's face twisted. With rage he raised his hand as if to strike, but before he could, other voices rose. He is right, an older woman said, her voice trembling. I saw it too. He fed them. And what harm is in that? Another man added. If kindness is weakness, then we have all become too hard. The circle shifted, cracks forming in the wall of anger. The three men looked around, their power fading as doubt spread through the crowd. The human's eyes never wavered, his hand resting lightly on the counter. If you wish to strike me, do it, he said, his voice calm. But know this, I will not stop. No matter how many threats, no matter how many whispers, I will not stop. The men faltered, their anger shrinking under the weight of his calm strength. Finally, with bitter curses, they pushed through the crowd and left, their footsteps loud in the silence. The market exhaled, the tension melting into uneasy quiet. Eyes turned back to the human, some filled with shame, others with new respect. The mother's knees weakened, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her son clung to her hand, his small smile shining with relief. The human looked at them, his face softening. You are safe, he said simply. In that moment, something changed. Not just for the mother, not just for her son, but for the settlement itself. Whispers had been broken by courage. Fear had been silenced by kindness. Days later, the market was still divided. Some still muttered in anger, but others began to follow his example. Small acts of kindness appeared. A fruit seller slipping an apple into a poor child's hands, a baker offering bread at half cost, little sparks born from one man's courage. The mother no longer walked with her head bowed. She held her son's hand proudly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The shame that once chained her had begun to break. One evening, as the sun set over the dusty streets, the boy tugged at the human's sleeve, his eyes wide. Are we family now? He asked softly. The human knelt, his hand gentle on the boy's shoulder. Yes, he said, his voice warm. As much as you need, I am here. The mother's tears fell again, but this time they were not of shame. They were of relief, of gratitude, of hope. For the first time in many years, she dared to believe in tomorrow, and for the first time in that settlement, others began to believe too. It was not just food that the human had given. It was something far more rare, far more powerful. He had given them dignity. He had given them courage, and he had given them a new beginning.